Starting this hour off is Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Welcome to the Dave Ramsey Show.
Dave, thanks so much for having me today. I appreciate it.
Sure. What's up?
So, been a follower of your methods for quite some time. Paid off about $30,000 in debt nearly 7 years ago, following beans and rice and beans. Been on a budget ever since. Haven't been so wise in financing my money. I've got about $41,000 sitting in the bank, but that's another call for another day. The reason I'm calling today was my girlfriend and I, about 4 months ago, had to take a position in New York City, and she is from a different part of the country, and I basically said, if we're going to make this sort of work and last, we've got to, if we're apart, it's not going to work. You got to come with me or it's just not going to happen. So we moved in together back in January, and she's been on board with budget. She's actually taken your class many years ago, and unfortunately my occupation will require me to take off for another couple of months here. And so the other day we're sitting down going over our budget together, and we've combined our budget from the very beginning. She makes about $35,000 a year. I make $48,000, and she had alluded to in the past that she had some debt sort of looming. Was very, very apprehensive about talking about it because a previous relationship ended when she apprised her partner of the fact that she had this debt. And so it sort of just built some trust, and it came out the other day, and I learned that she has $113,000 in student loan debt. And this is in addition to some debt that I was already aware of, $13,000 for a car note, and an additional $11,000 for another student loan. As I mentioned, she makes $35,000 a year. I make $48,000, and it was a blow. It was I'm accustomed to paying off debt. I'm accustomed to living under my means or not beyond my means, but $136,000 is a very, very large sum, and so I'm looking for some advice personally, and I'm also looking for some advice for her. It's clearly affected her, and my heart is telling me, this is a girl that I could spend the rest of my life with, and the logical part of my brain is saying, Justin, this is a lot to wade into, particularly considering that so many marriages end in failure because of financial reasons. So I figured I'd give you a call. It's been the third time I've said psychology. It's been about 7 years since I have, so the last one was a debt-free call, and now I'm coming back.
Okay. Well, how old are you guys?
I'm 33, and she's 28.
Okay. All right. Well, to start with, let's lay some baselines. If you're not married to someone, you're not married to them. And so you're not responsible for their debt, and you should not be combining finances and paying off debt with someone you're not married to.
Sure, I understand.
That's going to end poorly. And so you're trying to play house, and you're not married, and it doesn't work. It sets you up for all kinds of relational and legal problems later on, and it creates a bind because if you begin to pay off this debt for someone you're not married to, her debt, then that does start to put a strain on the relationship. Now, let's fast forward and take that off the table for a minute and pretend that you guys decided to get married, and you were married, or you wanted to consider marriage, given this set of facts. Now, if you were to marry into this, then the question is, or should you marry into this? I think someone that's willing to sacrifice to pay off the debt and willing to live on beans and rice and willing to work hand in glove with their spouse is marriage material. If you're in love. And so I would not say to abandon a relationship based on the fact that she's got debt. I would abandon it in a heartbeat if she's not serious about getting rid of the debt. And she's not willing to sacrifice and not willing to say, well, I have to have my nails done. I got to have cable, and I've got $118,000 in debt, and I make $35,000 a year.
Right.
This chick is known as clueless, and you're gonna have a long life if you're married to her. If that's the,
I can tell you, Dave. I'll tell you, we've been on a budget from the day one, even since before she came here with me. Yeah. I said we're going to be on a budget, and we've lived in New York City very, very meagerly.
You have to live on what you're making, much less.
Precisely. Yeah, she's completely on board with that.
I think if you all are willing to fight, if you're willing to fight together and willing to sacrifice together, then you could start paying on this debt after you're married, and I would be just fine with that. I personally would not abandon a relationship based on the fact that somebody screwed up and went into debt. I would abandon it if they're not willing to do what it takes to get out of the debt.
Even with the length, I mean, we're looking at like 2027, according to your.
Well, you know,
calculator.
all you did there was a linear calculation. You did not include the fact that your incomes might go up.
Sure.
Or that you might move to another area of the country and your expenses go down.
That's a good point as well.
And so there's, I can tell you this about your life. It's going to change.
Yeah, right.
That was insightful, wasn't it? So, the point is, Sharon and I have faced things that we didn't even know existed since we've been married.
Yeah.
And so you're going to do the same thing, good and bad. Opportunities and blessings, curses and challenges that you didn't even see coming.
Do you have any encouraging words for her? I mean, at this point, she's pretty distraught by the fact she let me know, listen, this is all.
I think the first encouraging word that you can give her is that this doesn't cost her this relationship.
Okay.
And I think that's going to – she's already lost one over this.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to be dramatically encouraged that she has a teammate that's willing to stick with her and fight this forward. But, you're kind of standing with one foot on your boat and one on the dock, though, dude, as long as you're not married.
No, you're absolutely right.
So you got to think that through from a practical standpoint. I mean, obviously, as a Christian, there's a spiritual angle on that for me as well. But you've got to decide that from a practical and a legal standpoint, it just doesn't work well playing house. Very few people pull it off. I've tried to counsel people that are playing house and for years, and they just, because you don't know, you don't have that extra level of commitment. Well, we're committed. Yeah, I know you are, right? Even married people aren't always committed, but at least you got a shot on it then. So there's a practical aspect to it. And so I think if you end this relationship, it should be for other reasons other than finding out about her debt. And if you're going to go forward on the relationship and be married is the only time you should pay on it. Good question, sir. It's an honor to talk to you. You sound like a good young man.